Silence has a power that few people truly understand. Just imagine. In a world that never stops shouting, where everyone competes for attention, where we are bombarded by notifications, opinions, and constant noise, there exists a healing force, so profound that it can completely transform your life. And this force is hidden in the most unlikely place, in the silence you so often avoid. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, discovered something revolutionary about our psyche. He realized that when words fail, when pain is so deep that we can no longer explain it, that is precisely when the unconscious begins to work its healing magic. What if what truly heals isn't the words you say, but the silence you finally allow? What if everything you've tried so far, all the therapies, all the conversations, all the explanations, hasn't worked simply because you haven't yet learned the art of conscious silence? Today I will reveal how this silence, when practiced in the way Jung discovered, can heal wounds so deep that no words could ever reach them. This is not just another superficial technique. It's a journey to the depths of your soul, where true healing happens. A journey that begins when you finally stop trying to explain your pain and start listening to it. Have you ever felt that inexpressible pain? That anguish that, no matter how hard you try, words simply cannot capture? We all carry wounds that are difficult to articulate, traumas that, when we try to explain them to someone, seem to lose their real dimension. It's as if human language were inadequate to express the depth of what we feel. And the more we try to explain, the more frustrated we become when we realize that the people around us cannot truly understand. Perhaps you've experienced this. You tried to explain to a friend, a partner, or even a therapist what you feel inside. You used all the words you knew, tried analogies, metaphors, examples, and yet, in the end, that look on the person's face showed they hadn't truly captured the essence of your pain, and this only increased your sense of isolation, that no one really understands what you're going through. Or perhaps you've given up trying to explain. Perhaps you've decided it's better to keep it to yourself, because words only seem to diminish the real magnitude of what you feel. You smile and say everything is fine, while inside you carry an ocean of unexpressed emotions. And so you try techniques, therapies, meditations, self-help books, inspirational videos. You follow all the recommended steps, practice all the affirmations, try to rationalize your feelings. But that deep pain remains there, untouched by all these attempts. And you begin to wonder, is there a cure for what cannot be said? Jung discovered that yes, there is a cure. But it doesn't come through more words or more explanations. It comes through silence. A special silence that he called active. Not that silence of repression, where you stifle your feelings, but a silence of deep listening, where you finally allow your unconscious to communicate what words cannot. You see, there are parts of our psyche that never learned human language. They are ancestral, deep parts that communicate through symbols, bodily sensations, images, and emotions. When we try to force these parts to express themselves in words, we are essentially asking a wild animal to perform circus tricks. It's not natural, it's not effective, and often, it only increases our frustration. Think of the times you tried to rationalize an intense emotion and ended up even more confused. Or the times you tried to explain a vivid dream and realized that words didn't capture even a tenth of the sensation the dream provoked. This happens because we are trying to translate the language of the soul into the language of the conscious mind. And much is lost in this translation. What Jung teaches us is revolutionary precisely because it is counterintuitive. To heal the deepest wounds, we need to stop trying to explain them and start listening to them. We need to create a space of silence where the wisdom of the unconscious can naturally emerge, bringing with it healing that comes from within, not from outside. And believe it, this wisdom is there, inside you. Your unconscious already knows exactly what you need to heal. It already perfectly understands the origin and nature of your pain. But as long as you continue trying to dominate this process with words and explanations, this wisdom will not be able to fully emerge. This doesn't mean you should abandon verbal therapies or stop communicating. It means that, in addition to all this, you need to add moments of conscious silence, moments when you are simply present with your pain, without trying to name it, change it, or understand it intellectually. It is in these moments of surrender to silence that true internal alchemy happens. The modern world has conditioned us to believe that we constantly need to be doing something to solve our problems. We need to act, speak, process, analyze. What if simply the act of stopping, of allowing, of being in silence was the missing ingredient in your healing journey? Conscious silence is not just the absence of external noise. It is an internal state of receptivity. It is the creation of a sacred space within you where emotions, images, sensations, and intuitions can freely emerge, without the constant filter of your rational mind. It is a state that few of us were taught to cultivate, but that we can all learn. One of the biggest obstacles to this practice is fear. Fear of what may emerge when we finally stop running through words and distractions. Fear of facing the void, of confronting pain in its pure form. Many of us have developed sophisticated mechanisms to avoid this encounter. We talk non-stop, keep ourselves busy, rationalize excessively, distract ourselves with technology, work, relationships, or subtle addictions. But what you are avoiding is exactly what can heal you. Silence is not your enemy. It is the portal to your deepest healing. And learning to enter this silence, to consciously inhabit it, can be the turning point in your journey of personal transformation. Let's then learn and practice how to access this transformative power of silence. The first step is to learn to distinguish between passive silence and active silence. Passive silence is that in which you are merely externally quiet, but your mind continues in a whirlwind of thoughts, judgments, and analyses. You may be physically quiet, but internally you are talking non-stop. This is not the silence that heals. The active silence that Jung proposes is completely different. It is a state of alert presence where you are fully attentive, but without the constant filter of verbal thought. It's as if you created an internal space where the deepest parts of your psyche, those that don't speak the language of words, can finally express themselves and be heard. To begin this practice, initially, set aside just 10 minutes a day. Find a place where you won't be interrupted. Turn off all electronic devices. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Now, instead of trying to stop your thoughts or control your mind, simply observe what arises. Observe without judging, without analyzing, without trying to change anything. As if you were a curious observer, witnessing something fascinating. At first, you will probably notice how agitated your mind is. Thoughts about the past, worries about the future, analyses of your current situation, all this will arise. Don't fight against these thoughts. Simply note them and let them pass, like clouds in the sky. Gradually, between one thought and another, small spaces of true silence will begin to appear. It is in these spaces that the magic happens. When you notice that you are being dragged by a current of thoughts, gently bring your attention back to the sensations of your body. Feel your breathing. Feel the weight of your body in the chair or on the floor. These physical sensations are anchors that bring you back to the present moment, where silence can flourish. With time, you will begin to notice something extraordinary. In the silence, images, sensations, or intuitions will emerge that seem to come from a much deeper place than your habitual thoughts. Sometimes they will be enigmatic symbols. Other times they will be intense feelings that arise apparently from nowhere. These are the communications of your unconscious, the language of the soul that Jung discovered to be so powerful. A Jung patient once reported that, after weeks of practicing active silence, she had a vivid vision of a bird trapped in a golden cage. It wasn't a dream or a conscious thought. It was an image that arose spontaneously in the silence. This image carried a profound truth about her life that no amount of rational analysis had revealed. She was trapped in a golden cage of material, comfort, and social approval, but her soul yearned for freedom to express itself authentically. This is the language of the unconscious, direct, symbolic, deeply revealing, and it can only be heard when we create space for silence. As you practice, you will realize that your unconscious is constantly sending messages, trying to guide you toward healing and wholeness. But these messages don't come in well-articulated words, They come through impressions, images, bodily sensations, and symbols. Learn to value these nonverbal communications as much as you value logical and well-structured thoughts. A powerful way to deepen this practice is to document what emerges in the silence, but not with words. Use simple drawings, colors, shapes, even if you have no artistic ability. Don't try to make something beautiful or technically correct. Simply allow your hand to express what you experienced in the silence. This visual record creates a bridge between your unconscious and your consciousness, without forcing the translation into words. Many people discover that, with this regular practice, they begin to dream more vividly and remember their dreams better. This is no coincidence. By creating space for silence in your waking life, you are essentially telling your unconscious, "I am ready to listen." And the unconscious responds, not only during your silence practice, but also through dreams. Now, let's address a crucial aspect that Jung considered central to any process of deep healing: the encounter with the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, represents all aspects of ourselves that we repress, deny, or reject. They are the parts of us that we consider unacceptable and therefore push into the unconscious. The fascinating paradox that Jung discovered is that our shadow contains not only our negative aspects, but also some of our greatest unrecognized strengths and gifts. And it can only be truly encountered and integrated in silence. When we practice active silence, frequently the first thing that emerges are precisely the contents of the shadow. This happens because these are the aspects that most need recognition and integration. They are, metaphorically, knocking on the door of consciousness, begging to be seen. This is why many people give up on the practice of silence in the first few days. They encounter uncomfortable emotions, painful memories, or aspects of themselves they would prefer not to see. Repressed anger, deep sadness, denied desires, hidden fears. All of this can emerge when we finally stop making external and internal noise. But here is the transformative secret. It is precisely by encountering and witnessing these shadowy aspects, in silence without trying to explain or change them, that deep healing occurs. The simple act of consciously witnessing without judgment is in itself healing. Jung observed that the more we deny or repress an aspect of ourselves, the more psychic energy gets trapped in that repression. It's like holding a ball underwater. It requires constant energy. When we finally allow these aspects to emerge in silence, we release that psychic energy for more constructive purposes. We feel a sense of relief, as if a weight has been lifted from our shoulders. Remember, in silence, you don't need to do anything with what emerges. You don't need to analyze, understand, explain, or resolve it. Just witness, just be present. The very act of consciously witnessing is transformative. It's as if you were saying to these denied parts of yourself, "I see you, you are valid, you can exist." A woman who practiced this technique for several months reported a profound experience. During silence, she began to feel intense anger emerge. Anger she had repressed for years, believing that good women don't feel anger. Instead of trying to get rid of this feeling or rationalize it, she simply allowed it to be present. She felt the anger in her body, observed the physical sensations, the thoughts that arose, without judgment, without attempt to change, just witnessing. After several sessions of this kind, something surprising happened. The anger began to transform naturally, not because she tried to change it, but because she finally allowed this energy to exist fully in her consciousness. The anger revealed its message, a call to establish healthy boundaries in her life, and then transformed into assertiveness and clarity, a quality she so needed. This is the alchemy of silence that Jung discovered. When we allow the contents of the shadow to exist in the light of consciousness, without words, without analyses, just with attentive presence, they naturally transform. They reveal their hidden wisdom and harmoniously integrate into our personality. The next fundamental aspect of healing through silence is what Jung called the process of individuation. Individuation is the path by which we become fully ourselves, not the version that other people expect us to be, not the version we think we should be, but our authentic and unique essence. Jung realized that much of human suffering comes from living disconnected from our true self. We adopt masks and personas. To please others, we stifle our unique gifts to conform to social expectations, and we lose touch with our authentic purpose. And all this creates a profound existential malaise, a sense that something fundamental is missing in our life. Silence is the space where we can finally hear our inner calling. In the rush of life, we are bombarded with external expectations, with models of success and happiness that may have nothing to do with who we really are. We become so accustomed to these external voices that, often, we lose the ability to distinguish between what others expect from us and what our soul truly desires. In silence, this distinction begins to become clear. When you regularly practice active silence, you begin to perceive which desires and aspirations come from social expectations and which emerge from the depths of your authentic being. It's as if the constant noise of society finally diminishes, allowing you to hear the soft but persistent voice of your essence. A powerful way to facilitate this process is to ask yourself during your silence practice, if no one ever knew what I chose to do with my life, if there were no external recognition, applause, or criticism, what would I still choose to be and do? This question, when asked in the space of deep silence, can reveal surprising directions. Jung observed in his patients that, frequently, people were living lives that seemed rich and successful externally, but internally felt a profound emptiness. This emptiness was the result of having lost touch with their authentic individual path, and silence was the most powerful tool to reconnect with this path. When we silence ourselves, we begin to notice subtle sensations of expansion or contraction in relation to different aspects of our life. Some activities, relationships, or environments give us a sensation of life, of flowing energy, of expansion. Others give us a sensation of contraction, of energy being drained, of a subtle sensation of death. These sensations are the internal compass that Jung identified as crucial for the process of individuation. Following these sensations, moving in the direction of what brings expansion and life, and moving away from what brings contraction and energy drainage, is following the path of individuation. It is allowing your life to be guided not by external rules or social expectations, but by the innate wisdom of your deepest being. A successful executive reported a transformative experience after practicing Jungian silence for several months. During a particularly deep session, she saw herself visualizing a forked path. One of the paths led to more corporate success, more wealth, more status. The other led to a simpler life, more connected with nature and artistic expression. To her surprise, as she contemplated the path of traditional success, she felt a contraction in her chest, a sensation of heaviness. When contemplating the alternative path, she felt an expansion, a lightness, as if something inside her could finally breathe. This experience in silence was the beginning of a profound reevaluation of her life and, eventually, of significant changes that led her to an existence more aligned with her essential nature. This is the gift of individuation through silence. You begin to live not the life you were programmed to live, but the life your soul came to express, and this brings a sense of meaning and fullness that no external achievement can provide. Jung firmly believed that each person has a unique calling, a singular purpose that only they can fulfill. It's not necessarily about great deeds or changing the world. It can be something simple, but which represents the authentic expression of your unique essence. In silence, this calling can finally be heard. Let's now explore how silence transforms our relationships. Jung observed that much of the suffering in human relations comes from the phenomenon of projection, the unconscious process by which we attribute denied aspects of ourselves to others. When we don't recognize certain aspects of our personality, whether because we consider them unacceptable or because we simply aren't aware of them, we tend to project them onto the people around us. Then, we react to these people as if they were the source of these qualities, when in fact, we are reacting to unrecognized parts of ourselves. For example, if you repress your own anger and consider it unacceptable, you will probably feel extremely uncomfortable around people who openly express anger. You may judge them as aggressive or out of control, when in fact you are reacting to your own repressed anger that these people are mirroring. Silence has an extraordinary power to dissipate, these projections. When you regularly practice active silence, you begin to recognize and accept all aspects of yourself, including those you previously rejected. As you integrate these denied parts, the projections naturally diminish. You begin to see people as they really are, not as screens for your unconscious projections. This profoundly transforms your relationships. Instead of automatically reacting to others based on your own unprocessed content, you begin to respond from a place of greater clarity and presence. Your relationships become more authentic, deeper, and less burdened with unnecessary drama. Additionally, silence can be practiced not only individually, but also together. Jung called this shared silence, moments when two or more people are together, fully present, but without the need to fill the space with words. Many couples discover that dedicating time to simply being together in silence, perhaps holding hands, perhaps just sitting side by side, creates a deeper connection than hours of conversation. It's as if, in silence, we could meet at a more essential level, beyond personalities and social roles. A man who implemented this practice with his wife after years of difficult communication reported a surprising change. After a few weeks of practicing silence together for just 15 minutes a day, we began to understand each other at a level that words had never reached. It's as if in silence we could feel each other's essence, without all the layers of misinterpretations and defenses that normally exist when we try to communicate with words. Silence also transforms our relationship with difficult or conflictual situations. When we learn to create inner space through silence, we gain the ability to respond instead of react. There is a moment of pause, an opening between the stimulus and our response. In this opening lies our freedom and our power. Imagine a situation where someone says something that would normally make you defensive or react with anger. If you regularly practice silence, you will have developed the ability to create an internal space even in moments of tension. In this space, you can observe your initial reaction without being dominated by it. You can feel the impulse to attack or defend yourself, but you don't need to act based on that impulse. This small moment of internal silence changes everything. It allows you to respond from a place of conscious choice, not automatic reactivity. And this transforms not only your relationships, but your entire life experience. Jung observed that people who cultivated this quality of internal silence seemed to develop a kind of psychological immunity to toxic situations. Not that they didn't feel the impact of negative energies or difficult behaviors, but they weren't dragged into these patterns. They maintained a center of clarity and peace even amid chaos. Think of how your life would be if you could maintain this quality of silent presence in all your relationships. What would it be like to be able to be with anyone, even those you consider difficult, without losing your center? What would it be like to respond to life from a place of conscious choice instead of automatic reaction? That is the promise of silence that Jung discovered. Not only healing for deep wounds, but a completely new way of being in the world and relating to everything and everyone around you. Throughout this journey through the power of silence, we've explored how it can heal wounds that words don't reach, how it allows us to access the wisdom of the unconscious, how it helps us integrate our shadow, how it guides us on the path of individuation, and how it transforms our relationships. But perhaps the deepest aspect of silence is something that is beyond all these specific functions. It is the fact that, in silence, we find a dimension of our being that is beyond all wounds, beyond all the dramas of our personal history. We find what Jung called the self, the organizing center of the psyche, the source of integration and wholeness. The self is not the same as the ego, that part of us that says I, and that navigates the everyday world. The self is something much vaster, deeper, more encompassing. It is, in a sense, the divine aspect within us, the point where the individual meets the universal. In deep silence, we can experience moments of connection with this dimension of our being. These are moments of profound peace, clarity, and integration, where the dualities and conflicts that normally torment us seem to dissolve. It's not that problems magically disappear, but they are seen from a much broader perspective, where they lose their power to dominate us. Jung observed that people who regularly cultivated active silence frequently reported experiences of this kind. Moments when they felt a deep connection with something greater than themselves. Moments of transcendent insight. Moments when the meaning of life revealed itself not as an intellectual concept, but as a direct experience. These experiences are not mystical abstractions without practical relevance. On the contrary, they have a profoundly transformative impact on everyday life. When you experience, even if briefly, this deeper dimension of your being, your relationship with life's challenges and sufferings fundamentally changes. You begin to realize that, although your personal history, with all its wounds, traumas, and conditioning, is real and important, it is not the totality of who you are. There is a dimension of your being that witnesses this history, but is not limited or defined by it. And it is from this dimension that true healing can flow. This is why silence, as Jung conceived it, is not just another therapeutic technique among many. It is a portal to a completely different dimension of human experience, a dimension where we find resources and possibilities that are simply not accessible at the level of the verbal mind. Jung spoke of synchronicity, those seemingly magical moments when the external world seems to precisely mirror our internal state, creating meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by common causality. He observed that these synchronicities tended to increase in the lives of people who regularly practiced silence. It's as if, by creating internal space through silence, we also created an opening for the universe to communicate with us in unexpected and deeply meaningful ways. Signs, encounters, coincidental events that seem to guide our path precisely when we most need guidance. A man who began to practice silence after years of struggling with deep depression reported, "After a few weeks of regular practice, I began to notice strange coincidences. Books falling from shelves open exactly to the pages I needed to read. Casual encounters with people who had exactly the information or perspective I was seeking. It was as if the universe were conspiring in my favor, guiding me to healing resources I would never have found on my own." This is the magical dimension of silence that transcends any purely psychological approach. It is the point where psychology meets spirituality, where individual healing connects with something much greater. But don't think this is something reserved only for mystics or especially evolved people. Jung insisted that this dimension is accessible to all of us here and now through the simple practice of conscious silence. It is our birthright as human beings, not an exotic state reserved for the few. And perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this approach is that you don't need to believe in anything specific to experience it. You don't need to adopt any belief, system, any philosophy or religion. You just need to be willing to create space for silence in your life and observe, with an open and curious mind, what emerges from that silence. After all we've explored, you may be wondering, where do I start? How do I integrate this practice of conscious silence into my daily life, especially considering the frantic and noisy rhythm of the modern world? Here is a simple guide, inspired by Jung's teachings, that you can begin to implement today. Start small. Set aside just 10 minutes a day, preferably early in the morning, before the world fully awakens. Find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Turn off all electronic devices. Sit comfortably, with your spine erect but not tense. Close your eyes and begin by simply observing your breath. Don't try to control or modify your breathing in any way. Just observe the air entering and leaving your body. This simple observation already begins to create the necessary internal space. As thoughts arise, and they certainly will, don't fight against them. Don't judge yourself for thinking too much. Simply observe the thoughts as if they were clouds passing in the sky of your mind. Acknowledge them and gently bring your attention back to your breath. Gradually, you will begin to notice small spaces between thoughts, small moments of pure silence. At first, these moments will be brief and fleeting. With practice, they will naturally expand. After a few days or weeks of this basic practice, you can begin to direct your attention to any emotion, sensation, or image that spontaneously arises in the silence. Remember, the goal is not to analyze, interpret, or change what arises. It is simply to witness, to be present with what emerges. If a strong emotion arises, such as sadness, anger, or fear, allow it to be present. Feel it fully in your body. Observe the physical sensations associated with this emotion. This is already the beginning of the healing process that Jung identified. After your formal practice, take a moment to record any significant insight, image, or sensation that has arisen. This record doesn't need to be verbal. It can be a simple drawing, a color, a shape. The important thing is to create a bridge between the experience of silence and your everyday life. Gradually, expand the practice. Time if possible. 10 minutes can become 15, then 20. But remember, quality is more important than quantity. 5 minutes of truly conscious silence are more valuable than an hour of internal struggle. Beyond formal practice, begin to introduce small moments of conscious silence throughout your day. Before responding to an important email, pause for 30 seconds and breathe consciously. Before entering a difficult meeting, take a moment to center yourself in silence. Before reacting to an emotionally charged situation, create an internal space of silence, even if briefly. With time, you will begin to notice subtle but profound changes. Emotions that previously seemed overwhelming begin to lose their power over you. Repetitive and negative thought patterns begin to dissolve. Insights about difficult situations arise spontaneously. Important decisions become clearer. Relationships transform, and a general sense of peace and clarity begins to permeate your life, even amid inevitable challenges. These changes don't happen dramatically or suddenly. They unfold organically, like a flower slowly opening. But their cumulative impact can be truly transformative. And here is what might be the most revolutionary aspect of Jung's approach. Unlike many therapeutic or spiritual practices, which depend on an external guide, a therapist or master, conscious, silence is something you can practice completely on your own. The wisdom you need is already within you. Silence merely creates the conditions for that wisdom to naturally emerge. This doesn't mean you can't benefit from external guidance on your journey. Jung certainly valued the therapeutic relationship and the support of like-minded communities. But he insisted that, ultimately, the true work of healing and transformation is something each person must do for themselves, in the silence of their own being. And perhaps that's what makes this approach so powerful. It returns our inherent power to us. It reminds us that, no matter how lost or wounded we may feel, the capacity for healing and integration is already present within us. We need only create space for it to flourish. As Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." Silence is the portal to this awakening. It is the space where we can finally hear the wisdom of our own soul, where we can find the healing that no external word could provide. So today, allow yourself 10 minutes of sacred silence, not as one more task on your to-do list, not as one more technique to fix something in you, but as an act of profound respect for your own essential nature, as an act of trust in the inherent wisdom of your being. In that silence, you may discover what Jung realized almost a century ago, that the deepest healing doesn't come from outside, but naturally emerges from the sacred center of your own being, when you finally create space to hear it. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It is full of healing. It is full of the ancestral wisdom of your own psyche. And it is waiting for you, right now, patient and loving, ready to reveal its treasures when you are ready to listen. As Jung said, your silence will not be used against you. In fact, your silence will become your greatest strength, your safest refuge, and the portal to your deepest transformation. So, take a deep breath, close your eyes for a moment, and allow yourself to experience, even if briefly, the healing power of silence. Your true home, your true nature, the place where words end and true healing begins. Today, I want to invite you to experience this journey for yourself. The practice of conscious silence is not just a beautiful theory or a fascinating idea. It is a living experience that can profoundly transform your relationship with yourself and with the world. Many who have followed this path report a growing sense of inner wholeness. The fragmented parts of the self, those that were in conflict, those that were hidden, those that were disconnected, begin to naturally integrate. A sense of wholeness emerges, of being at home within yourself, that perhaps you have never experienced before. With this integration comes a surprising clarity about your direction in life. Decisions that previously seemed impossible or agonizing become evident. Not that all challenges magically disappear, but you develop a kind of internal compass that guides you even through the most difficult terrains. Your creativity also flourishes. Jung observed that people who regularly practiced silence seemed to have access to an inexhaustible source of creative inspiration. Original ideas, innovative solutions, unique artistic expressions, all of this naturally emerges from the space of inner silence. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to feel a profound peace, independent of external circumstances. It's not a peace based on conditions. It's not the peace that comes when everything is perfect in your life. It's a peace that comes from being connected with something within you that is greater than any problem, greater than any challenge, greater than any suffering. It is this peace that Jung considered the true treasure of the inner journey, a peace that cannot be taken from you because it doesn't depend on anything external, a peace that is always available because its source is within you. Remember that this journey is not linear. There will be days when silence seems impossible. There will be moments when intense emotions or chaotic thoughts seem to completely dominate. This is normal. This is expected. This is part of the process. In these moments, be gentle with yourself. Don't turn the practice of silence into one more demand, one more pressure. If all you can manage in a day are 30 seconds of true silence between a storm of thoughts, celebrate those 30 seconds. They are precious. They are powerful. They are transformative. Jung observed that the path to psychological wholeness is not a straight or predictable path. It is a circular, spiral, sometimes mysterious path. There will be moments of advancement, moments of apparent regression, moments of stagnation. All these moments have their purpose. All are part of the journey. And at each step of this journey, silence will be your most faithful ally. In silence, you will find the guidance that no book, no therapist, no external master could provide. Because this guidance comes from the deepest wisdom of your own being, a wisdom that transcends the intellect, that transcends words, that transcends even what you think you know about yourself. A woman who practiced Jungian silence for more than a year shared. At first, I was seeking specific answers, clear solutions to defined problems. What I discovered was something much deeper, a change in my relationship with the problems themselves. I came to see them not as obstacles to be eliminated, but as messengers bringing important lessons. And this change in perspective transformed everything. This is the promise of conscious silence. Not just solutions to specific problems, but a transformation in the way you relate to your entire life. A transformation that comes not from trying to change things externally, but from changing the internal space from which you perceive and respond to these things. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Silence is the most powerful tool we have for making the unconscious conscious. It is the space where the hidden forces that shape our lives can finally come to light, be recognized, and thus lose their power to control our destiny from the shadows. When you begin to practice silence regularly, you are essentially affirming, "I will no longer be controlled by forces I do not know. I am willing to face everything within me, the beautiful and the ugly, the luminous and the dark, the familiar and the strange. I am willing to know myself fully." And this willingness, this courage to look inward without running away, is what Jung considered the most heroic act a human being can perform. It's not a heroism that the world will applaud or recognize. It's a silent, intimate, personal heroism. But its reverberations extend far beyond you. Because when you heal yourself through silence, you are not only transforming your own life, you are contributing to the healing of the world. You are bringing more consciousness, more integration, more peace to the collective field of humanity. Jung deeply believed that the transformation of the world begins with the transformation of the individual. That each person who does the internal work of integrating their shadow, of connecting with their authentic essence, of healing their deep wounds, is literally helping to elevate the consciousness of all humanity. So, as you begin or deepen your own practice of silence, know that you are not only doing something for yourself, you are participating in a greater work, a work of collective healing that our world so desperately needs. In Jung's immortal words, how could a society become conscious if someone does not do the necessary work to see what is really happening? Your commitment to silence is also a commitment to truth. The truth about yourself, the truth about your life, the truth about the world. And in times like ours, characterized by so much noise, so much distraction, so much superficiality, this commitment to truth is revolutionary. So, today, allow yourself 10 minutes of sacred silence. Sit quietly, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and simply be present with whatever arises. Don't try to control the experience. Don't try to reach some special state. Just be there, fully, with loving attention. In this simple act, you are initiating or continuing a journey that has the potential to transform not only your life, but the very texture of the reality you experience. A journey to the heart of what it means to be truly human, truly conscious, truly alive. And always remember Jung's words. Your silence will not be used against you. On the contrary, your silence will become your deepest strength, your most sacred sanctuary, and the portal to the healing you have always sought. Now take one more deep breath, and when you are ready, allow yourself to take the first step, or the next step, on this journey of discovery and transformation. Silence is waiting for you, patient and loving, ready to reveal its treasures when you are ready to listen. The healing you have always sought is within you, in the sacred silence of your own soul.